We have respect in this chamber. We have standing orders. My own members in here have to abide by these standing orders in 5 minutes. That's what I'm saying, okay? It's a respect issue in here, Kerry. Okay, Councillor Maguire, questions, please.
Thanks, Provost Mendes. Isn't a question, it's declaration of interest. I hadn't expected to discuss Dean South, but as members will know that I'm employed by Wheatley Homes East Housing Association, which has a relationship with the house builder Springfield. Generally I don't take part in these items of business, but in this situation, because we're not making a decision, that I'm comfortable to take part. And I should also state that I work in a different housing team than the team that is responsible for the area of Dean South.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you. Questions? Councillor Damien Doran-Timpson, followed by Councillor Clark. Councillor Doran-Timpson, Damien, good morning.
Morning, Provost, thank you. I just want to thank the three making the deputation there, and apologies I can't be there today with you. As you may gather, I'm not feeling too good today. You mentioned that a lack of action by council and social landlords. Understandably, Wilson, you did get maybe pushed at the end to go through what you want from the council. Can you just run through what you actually want the Lothian Council to do now? Thank you, Wilson.
Can I just put your mic on?
Acknowledge responsibility for the use of substandard building materials in council properties and the subsequent risks posed to homeowners due to the failure to address the situation upon expiration of the 30-year lifespan of RAAC panels. Provide well-researched, immediate and equitable financial assistance and support to homeowners affected by RAAC, including funding for inspections. I've noted the council minutes and potential repairs. Explore cost-sharing arrangements or mis-share options which could offer a viable alternative solution. In the absence of immediate full replacement costs, I encourage the Council to consider risk mitigation strategies. The recent disclosure by the Association of British Insurers suggesting minimal insurance cancellations presents an opportunity for WLC to underwrite homeowner insurances for RAAC properties, spreading capital outlay over several years. Collaborate with the Scottish Government to secure the necessary funding and resources to address this crisis effectively. There was a statement by Scottish First Minister who has said that the responsibility for RAAC homeowners lies with the Scottish Government and local councils, and the UK Government has been very express in saying that housing is a devolved issue and that they have given record funding to the Scottish Government this year. Preserve as many of the existing homes as possible to prevent homelessness and minimise the reduction of housing stock, which would worsen existing housing crisis. Conduct a thorough investigation into the circumstances surrounding the use of RAAC in council properties and the failure to disclose pertinent information to homeowners. I'm really sorry, my mouth is dry. Undertake a mental health needs assessment and provide appropriate counselling and support to traumatised communities. We've heard that wonderful address by the woman that spoke before us about suicide. I can tell you, people are feeling quite distressed at the moment. There is trauma in these communities. They need to have adequate support. Prioritise the maintenance of existing strong communities, recognising their value and resilience in the face of adversity. Allow a priority return if any properties are demolished for those who are forced to leave. They have their friends, their families, and they have their connections to schools, to hospitals, whatever, to their doctors. Some of these people are elderly. They don't know any other place to live. They need that support from yourselves. A return, it has to be a priority. Guarantee the implementation of rent pressure zones in newly constructed developments that replace any RAAC community. Additionally, ensure that council tenants relocated due to RAAC have priority for return to the original neighbourhoods. The rent pressure zones will ensure those people who are on the margins of society, amongst the most deprived in Scotland in essence, that live in these council estates, continue to pay favourable rents and can survive not only through the current cost of living crisis, but in the future when they will still be quite marginalised. That really needs to be a part of the context of any decisions that this council makes.
Thank you. Damien, I see you still got your light on. Do you have another question?
It was a question, Provost, but while I had it, I would just say thank you to Wilson, and I do hope we do have a Joe Baxter Way at some time in the future. Thank you.
Right, it's questions, Damien. We're bringing in stuff later. Councillor Clark, did you have your light on? I'm not sure you were. I've got Councillor Smith. Veronica?
Yeah. It was Wilson, you had mentioned about the support that was being given from, is it Basildon Council? Could you maybe go through that again, because I missed some of it.
Have offered council tenants being relocated in an emergency £8,860. That would cover all the renovation costs. They may have done plastering in the house, wallpapering. I don't need to be more specific than that. But it also covers all of their relocation costs. I find it abysmal that nearly every Scottish council has a unique figure of £1,500. It's as if you're all collaborating together to introduce a new Scottish clearance.
And thank you. How is Basildon funding that?
If you listen to the address that I gave, I've asked you to engage with that council and to get the intrinsic details that you need to see how you can potentially do that. I would assume, like most councils, you have budgets. There's more than enough money in this council, despite what you say. Yes, there are going to be certain areas where you'd have to transfer funds from one region to the next. That's something that your chief executive and your officers will have to decide upon, advise your councillors, and then you would decide upon that. But alternatively, as I've always said from the beginning, in every council I've spoken in, speak to your national governments. Why don't you seek funding from a Scottish government that has received record funding this year? A government where the UK government has said it's their responsibility, devolved responsibility for housing, irrespective of whether the Scottish government was in place prior to these houses being sold or not. And at the end of the day, the Scottish First Minister himself has said this remit stays in the resolve of local authorities and the Scottish government. Please don't ask me questions when you're the politicians.
Okay, one minute final.
Hold on, Veronica, just 2 seconds. Are you not wanting any more questions then?
Yeah, it was just one.
No, I was just speaking to Mr. Chowdhry.
Sorry.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the process is for deputation is 5 minutes each, then questions from members, and then 2 minutes to sum up. Are you okay to carry on with questions from members? Thank you. Veronica, do you have another supplementary?
Yeah, it was just another question about the experience so far you've had with surveyors, insurance companies and mortgage companies, just the experience you've had so far.
Okay, so in Aberdeen, I can talk about. I hear it again. I've not. I think the majority have had the same issues. Insurance companies are providing and continuing insurance, but it's futile insurance. They have made it very clear. There's caveats involved. Any issues that they can pin on RAAC roofing will be denied any cover. So that would mean, for instance, I'm just going to draw an analogy. If there's an earthquake in West Lothian, a minor tremor, but that roof cracks, it will not be covered because of the failure of the roof, the weakness in the roof. That can push aside any outcome, a favourable outcome for that insurance. These insurances aren't worth the money that is being spent on them, but I'm sure most of you are aware of that. We also have the issue of mortgage prisoners. It's a new term I've coined. People are going to be locked into renewing insurances with the existing companies they're with. Nobody else at the time of renewal is going to take a risk with a zero equity property. And that's what's happened. These properties, because of all the media attention, because of the statements from the council, are now zero equity. Unless those roofs are replaced, and that's ubiquitously, we are going to have a situation where some of the most marginalised people in your communities are unable to afford their mortgages and are going to have properties taken away from properties aren't worth much, admittedly, but these people strived hard to earn the money to buy their own homes. They chose the right to buy scheme, a government scheme intended to level the playing field, to ensure everybody had an affordable home. If this council and the Scottish Government fail to intervene, they will make a laughing stock of that scheme. The majority of these people have absolutely no recourse to additional funds. They have no support. If this council fails to make the right decision, these people are homeless. You will exacerbate your existing homeless situation, and I'm sure every council member here will nod when I say you don't have the homes to cover the existing numbers of homeless in your borough. Don't add to it. Take the right decision now.
Thank you. Colleagues, is there any other members wishing to speak? It's just questions. Councillor Cohen. Tom?
Thanks, Provost. Can I thank you for your presentation, but I just want to get some clarification from some of the statements you've made, particularly regarding Craigs Hill. Do you understand that Craigs Hill was built by Livingston Development Corporation, a government quango? The house owners had a referendum and transferred to Amond Housing Association. So why is it now that it's a council responsibility that we have to provide the cash to sort of prop them out where we have never had an interest? Can you maybe just clarify that for me, please?
Wilson, thank you.
So if you listen to my speech, and I'm just recorded, I have asked for the council to intervene with Almond Housing to ensure that there's a fair deal. Irrespective of that, I'm sure you're impassioned anyway to intervene, and I'm sure you'll be contacting Almond Housing and ensuring that they actually liaise and talk and engage in dialogue with the people. Surely that's a consideration for the council to take. More to the point, at the end of the day, there is a right to buy scheme that was involved. This council can still approach Scottish Government to ensure that a fair deal is enacted upon the residents you serve. You are elected, you are in a position, voted into that position by people of this community, hoping that you have the empathy, the passion, the desire to make sure that their lives are better.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Provost, if I can just ask again a couple of questions.
Okay.
So what you seem to be asking us to do, first of all, is to intervene to another organisations and how they conduct their business. So public money is to be put there. You're asking us to invest money that, where does it come from, first of all? Does it come from the housing revenue account? We're obliged to spend that purely on our own council housing. Amond are not our council housing. I'm just trying to get to what you actually want us to do, because at the moment you've spoken a lot of information, but I'm just trying to get to the nub of the question. So, and for information, I'm not unsympathetic, but I'm just trying to get to the bottom of where is the common ground, where do we move forward? So, HRA, do you expect us to find money from our own housing revenue account?
The housing revenue account provides homes for local people. These local people bought these from the Right to Buy scheme. They bought, in essence, discounted properties initially. So some of them bought them from open markets from people that had been sold them. These properties were built with government funding. It is a government connection. So again, I reiterate, we appeal to this council to appeal or to engage the Scottish Government for funding to support a project, a right to buy project that has failed. This is a right to buy project that has failed. It's a government project. People were elected to the government, people are elected to the council. The council is also a voice for its people. So to say that you can't intervene with a business that sourced government funding to build houses in a right to buy scheme and then sold them on, totally clear by 2004 that these properties had potentially collapsible concrete in them. There is a responsibility that lies with government. There is a responsibility that lies with the council. You can wave it away as much as you want, deflect. But People here are listening. There are cameras here. You cannot deny this responsibility. Again, I say, right to buy. Anything connected to that has a political context. I forget your second point, but would you like to remind me, sorry?
My point is that the housing revenue...
Oh, the housing revenue. Sorry. So the budgets that are set, it will be a decision for councillors and council officers. If you feel that making an 83-year-old homeless or a 93-year-old homeless or many of the elderly residents homeless is an option you want to prevent, then of course you can make decisions to change your housing budget, to allocate payments for roofs. You're building houses adjoining them already. You can introduce a group buy scheme that potentially doesn't need to have too much funding from yourselves, but could at least a portion of that payment would be funded by that, and a proportion would be discounted just because of the large number, economies of scale from the number of people that would be buying it. That's not for me to decide, is it? I'm just explaining to you that the council does have a responsibility, as does your government.
Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Maguire, followed by Councillor Angela Doran-Simpson. Andrew?
Thanks very much, Provost. I just wondered if Mr Chowdhry and the other presenters have read the agenda for today. You'll see at the last full council meeting on the 19th of March, we agreed a composite motion to do exactly what Mr Chowdhry is suggesting, to write to the Scottish Government, and indeed in the pack today, the agenda pack, we've had response back from the Scottish Government, which effectively seems to pin the blame on the UK Government. I just wondered, in light of the various comments that you've made to Councillor Conn, and some of the substance in your presentation, what discussions you as a campaign group, nationally or even locally, have had with either the UK or the Scottish Government?
So the UK Government has written, so Rishi Sunak's office has written to us and explained that, again, they feel that it's devolved responsibility. The Scottish Government, in a newspaper article, which you can read on my blog, wilsonsthirdway.blogspot.com, the Scottish First Minister himself has said that the responsibility for the RAAC housing issue lies with Scottish councils and the Scottish Government. So this is your First Minister, your Scottish Secretary of State. Also, we've had Paul McLennan, the Housing Minister, openly say he hasn't closed the door to housing, to the RAAC scandal, I'll call it, not RAAC crisis, for Scottish homeowners. So you will have to continue applying that pressure. You as councillors have to continue liaising and say, no, we don't agree with you. We feel that this is an issue for Scottish Government. These are our people. These are the people that have elected us. These are the people that we want to help. You have to have that desire. I feel that in this building there are many of you that still don't have that desire. And it's shocking when you must have watched the same news stories, you must have read the same newspaper articles, you must be aware of people in palliative care that are suffering under the deep distress of the looming threat of a tons worth of concrete falling onto their heads as they fall asleep at night. You must be concerned about, I'm talking about Aberdeen City Council in particular, an 84-year-old man saying, I don't care if I die if the concrete kills me. I'm not moving from the home that I worked for all my life, in a community where I want to live and where I've lived and I want to die. This is how people feel. They have a resilience that is inspired by their community. They have passion for the place where their parents were, where their children have been brought up. A number of different links to the community. They have children that go to school. They don't want to move. They've invested in their properties. They bought these houses believing the government, believing the council that would have promoted right to buy. Not just Almond Housing, the council would have promoted right to buy. How can you now wash your hands? This isn't Pontius Pilate and Jesus at Calvary. This is councillors in West Lothian Council who need to take affirmative action, accept and acknowledge their responsibilities, and have a desire and passion to serve the community that voted for them and provide solutions. But you have to make that decision today. The world is watching. This is making international media. You're making a laughing stock of Scotland, of West Lothian. Well, West Lothian Council is already a laughing stock, in my opinion. I come from London. I can tell you, if Basildon Council acted like this, there would be a cry and a shame. At the next election, they'd all be voted out. I don't understand.
Mr. Chowdhry, you're answering questions, and I'm quite happy just to move on as an apology that will be needed. We have accepted you to come here today. Most of us haven't even spoken to you, and you're making these statements. The report hasn't even been set up yet.
I have Asperger's. I do apologise for that.
I understand the frustrations and so forth, okay? But please respect the members. The members are respecting you. But I will just... it's not open for debate. Right, I'm going to take too much. You've already said something. Sorry, Kerry, I'm just moving on. Next question is, and I can quite easily adjourn this meeting just now. Please, this is for your benefit. We are here to listen to you, to try to understand what's going on. Now, this is here in West Lothian, not London, not Aberdeen. We are trying to get to the bottom of this. On here is RAAC. We understand the areas where the RAAC is affecting us. We have a report here on the agenda, which will be discussed. And again, I'm asking just for some respect. The members have offered due respect. The members have agreed to hear you today. And I'm going to carry on now, and I'm going to go for 2 more questions. And please respect the member when they are asking a question. Thank you. Councillor Meek, Craig.
Thank you very much, Provost. Just going back to piggybacking on my colleague Councillor Maguire's question, what dialogue, what engagement have you had with the Scottish Government here in Scotland? Thank you.
The Scottish Government haven't actually responded to any emails or letters that have been posted. We went to the Scottish Parliament. We've now submitted official letters, and we hope that the Scottish Parliament respond. Similar letters, but of course identified as letters to the Scottish Government, in particular First Minister and Housing Minister, were submitted on Saturday the 11th. So we've done all we can. As I said, it's been ignored for all intents and purposes, but we continue to pursue. But we're in a political building that represents local people. I'm almost entirely sure that if you wrote in the same manner that we did, responses would come. Maybe slowly, but you would definitely receive responses. But as I've said, all we can do is read what the media is saying. And as I said, the Housing Minister has said he has not closed the door to homeowners affected by RAAC. So that gives us a glimmer of hope, especially when we're here before representatives of this council. Secondly,
can I just say, you keep bringing in the same information. We understand that. We understand what you're saying. This is questions. Again, I'm asking that you answer the question. I can adjourn this just now. I'm just trying to get on. Right. Councillor Meek, do you have any supplementaries? I'm not sure your question was answered, but as far as I can tell, they have written to the Scottish Government and no response. Okay?
Thanks very much, Provost. Yeah, I do have one additional question. In preparation for your deputation today, did you actually read any of the council papers on RAAC? Because you would have seen that we have been trying to have dialogue with the Scottish Government. So the question is, in preparation for today, did you actually read any of your documents?
I think I referred to it, if I'm correct, as well, and I did mention that I'd read about an approach to the Scottish Government for funding for RAAC inspections. But I mean, again, you may have missed that because it was quite a long deputation, so my apologies. Irrespective of that, so what was the other point you made? Did you make one? Oh, was that it? Is that okay? But I did read it, and just because some of the responses so far have been negative, that doesn't stop the council continuing to pursue it, and that's what we're going to be expecting.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan, Kirsten.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your deputation and your time for coming along here today. Just following on from the comments made by colleagues, I wondered if you'd read the report on agenda item 25 that is due to be heard later on in this meeting, that does outline some steps taken by West Lothian Council in regard to both council tenants and to private homeowners.
The majority of that was for council tenants, and again, for homeowners. There was nothing there that was solid or concrete. But as I said, what we have picked up on is that even within that report, you seem to be seeking funding for inspections, but that's not what we're asking for. People here aren't asking for the cost of inspections to be covered. They're asking for either full remedial works. I know that there was a small comment about looking for funding for remedial works, but we'd want full remedial works, or in the case where demolition takes place, the cost of a house, either a house for a house, or the cost of complete restoration of homes. So, and that's not detailed specifically in your report.
I understand that. If I could just ask another couple of quick questions.
Right, another couple of quick questions, and then I'm trying to move this item on. Thank you.
I think you'd made the comment about washing our hands, but clearly, as set out in agenda item 25 and in the correspondence from this council to the government minister and the response, you would see that efforts have been made. Would you agree that there have been steps taken? Might not be the full steps that you have come to ask for today, but we have started to, we have engaged with government around what support can be given.
Every homeowner is going to be grateful for any step taken. We're here to ensure that the full nature of the demands is accepted, that an acknowledgement is made that there were issues related to that right to buy scheme, that the council was involved in that right to buy scheme, even for those that bought homes from Almond Housing or any other housing association. Because in essence, you would have promoted this to local residents, you would have advised them of this. There would be an advice clinic that would point people in this direction of right to buy scheme. There was a councillor earlier that brought this to the fore by querying whether there was any responsibility. But I'm not going to ask people to put hands up. I'm sure they all would behind me. Every single person I've spoken to believes the council was involved, and that engagement is essential. Almond Housing is not corresponding with homeowners. They're not sending many letters. I mean, the letters that are being sent are minimal in their content. People want to know what Almond Housing intends. It may need a senior figure from this council to work with them, to make them understand their responsibility to the tenants, to the homeowners they serve, that they sold these properties to. We don't want the council to be able at any point in time to say that's an Almond Housing responsibility, not a West Lothian Council responsibility. I'd like to hear that today from somebody, if at all possible.
Okay, if I could just ask my last question.
Right, last question.
Yeah. Following on from a point raised by my colleague Councillor Conn, you clearly have extensive knowledge and insight into what's going on in Basildon. So can I just ask again, because I don't think you answered the specific point about how that was funded?
So, I'm not on Basildon Council. I have seen the letters sent to residents. I have spoken to the assistant housing, some convoluted, extremely long title, the officer, and he's made it very clear that this funding is going to be provided to their tenants. That has been done. Now, whether or not they got that fund from the UK government, I don't know. Whether they got it from existing budgets, I don't know. Whether it's a transfer from a vanity project that's now been suspended, potentially that could be a yes. I can't tell you that. But you are a council, and dialogue with Basildon should now be made a priority, because they seem to be taking steps and measures that completely provide a complete solution to the people that need them.
Okay, so you don't know. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, this now brings us to summing up. Ashley, Kerry and Wilson, you now have 2 minutes to sum up. Please do not bring in any new information